After school starts, Izuku works less, but the times that he does work are now only the times where the children of the Todoroki family are home, so he soon runs into yet another Todoroki child. It starts with what has begun to be a bit of a routine for Izuku. For the Hydrarchias, which are actually rather difficult to work with, since they change color with the pH level and tend to be finicky. He's carefully adding limestone powder to the soil. The Hydrarchias are meant to be pink, almost red color, which the limestone allows, but just too much can lead to the flower dying from the soil being too basic. He is rather focused on the task and is trying to coax his quirk into helping him. When he is pulled out of his task by the feeling of his quirk jerking him upward, he stumbles to his feet in time to see the Todoroki, the one with red and white hair, creep around a corner of the house. He sees Izuku and rushes towards him. They have settled into something like companionship. The kids seem to have picked up on Izuku never being caught doing something against the rules by endeavor. He's taken to finding Izuku when he is working and sticking around. Izuku is honestly not sure what to make of it, but he doesn't mind the kid's company. Izuku smiles at him, then sits back down by his work bag. He pulls out a protein bar he had grabbed that morning and hands it to the Todoroki wordlessly. He goes back to tending the soil. So, Hydrarchias, right? Right. The Todoroki replies. He starts on the bar. He has gotten used to Izuku giving him electrolyte drinks and snacks most times they react. They have this property where they change color based on the acidity of the soil. Izuku continues on this track for a while. The Todoroki doesn't seem to mind that Izuku is the only one talking, and Izuku doesn't mind talking about nothing for long periods of time. The Todoroki pulls out some schoolwork from his bag and works on it as Izuku talks. After a while, Izuku runs out of small pruning and adjusting that he could justify on the plant and feels a pull on his quirk. He packs up his tools and hands the Todoroki the garbage bag of yard debris he had collected. He takes it without complaint. Izuku heads towards the gardening shed and gestures for Todoroki to enter it. He does, trusting Izuku at this point. Just as the kid is out of view, Endeavor walks around the side of the house. He's got on training clothes and is obviously looking for his son. He glances at Izuku, then continues onward without a second look. Okay, Izuku said with a nod. The Todoroki pokes his head out from the shed, then glances at Izuku. You know that you might get fired for this? He asked hesitantly. Yeah, but I don't get caught. Izuku answers with a shrug. He hasn't been caught doing something that he shouldn't do in years now, and most rules are just guidelines anyway. Which is the moment when Fuyumi Todoroki and a man Izuku doesn't know round the corner. The instant Fuyumi sees Izuku, she smiles and waves. She grabs the man by the arm and drags him over. Hi Akatani, it's been a while. Izuku has been working at the Todoroki household for almost 2 years now. He has seen and talked to Fuyumi a number of times. She seemed to take a general liking to him. They don't know each other particularly well, but Izuku knows that she lives on the Todoroki property and is a teacher at a nearby elementary school. Yeah, how has the year been so far? Izuku asks. It's been great. I miss it over break. She looks up at Izuku's head. Oh, you've dyed your hair again. It looks great. Thank you. Izuku beams. He and his mom had worked together to dye it black again. He rather likes it. Oh, right. Fuyumi pulled the man forward. You should meet Natsuo. He's my other brother. Natsuo looks vaguely confused, but bows at Izuku. It's nice to meet you. Fuyumi has mentioned you before. There's another Todoroki? Izuku bounces forward. He shakes Natsuo's hand and smiles. It's nice to meet you. I'm Akatani Mikumo. Ah, right. You're a gardener? He asks. He glances at Izuku's face, frowning a little. Izuku hadn't been doing the makeup that made him looking older for months now, but no one had called him out on it yet. Yeah, I've been here for almost 2 years now. Really? Natsuo says. Usually they don't last that long. Fuyumi elbows him. Okay, come on, he says, pulling away. Everyone knows it. With that shining personality, he punctuates this with finger quotes. No one really wants to stick around that long. I mean, I just tend to stay out of his way, Izuku says with a shrug. He does do that. The other Todoroki says from behind Izuku. Izuku turns around to look at him. He has kind of forgotten that he is still standing in the shed. Shoto, Fuyumi says, I wanted to ask you if you would visit Mom with us. The Todoroki, whose name was apparently Shoto, goes cold, literally, since his eyes starts growing up his right side. No. Right, that's fine I guess. Fuyumi says, smile growing smaller. Izuku squirk pulses. Does your mother not live here too? Izuku asks before he can chicken out. There is a moment of silence while each of the siblings glance at each other. Fuyumi starts. She's got some health issues, so she lives at the hospital full time. Izuku feels like he just opened a huge can of worms, but now there was nothing to do but step in it. I'm sorry to hear that, but if you're going to visit her, do you want some flowers? He managed. I could pick some out for her. Fuyumi smiles at that and Natsuo relaxes. That would be lovely, thank you. Then she pauses, seeming to calculate something. Actually, you could bring them to her yourself. I don't know. Izuku suddenly feels unsure. I wouldn't want to intrude on her if she's in the hospital. Oh no, of course not. Fuyumi's eye gleamed, and Izuku doesn't know what that means. She doesn't get many visitors, and there is a lot of people who she would like to see. As she says it, she looks right at Shoto, who looks away. If you're sure, then, Izuku says, I'm done with my work today. When were you thinking of going? Just as soon as you're done would be great, Fuyumi says happily. Izuku shrugs and starts loading his gardening things back into the shed. The Todoroki sibling follows Izuku as he wanders about the ground collecting clippings. His quirk keeps sending him in random directions, which he suspects keep them perfectly out of sight wherever Endeavor is in the moment. He and Fuyumi chat about their lives, and Natsuo chimes in every once in a while. Shoto trails along behind them, shooting wary glances behind him. Eventually, they go inside to get the Todoroki's coats and a bag to carry the flowers. At the front door, Shoto hovers around, then seems to make a decision. I'll go with you, he says, pulling on a pair of shoes. Fuyumi and Natsuo step around to stare at him. Fuyumi looks triumphant. Natsuo just looks shocked. Don't you have training to do with that? Natsuo asks. No. Shoto says simply, then continues with a self-satisfied expression. I haven't gone to training for weeks now. What? How? Fuyumi asks. How'd you get out of it? Is that why Dad's been so mad lately? Shoto nods, then gestures to Izuku. I've been following him around, he says. Somehow, Father can never find him. If I just stay with him, the old man never has a chance to corner me. Fuyumi looks surprised, but Natsuo just laughs. Then, Natsuo jumps forward to grab Shoto in a headlock and attempts to ruffle Shoto's hair. It goes poorly, and he ends up sprawled on the floor. I knew it, he whistles. I knew that there was some rebellion in you somewhere. They go to the hospital together in Fuyumi's car. At the door to their mother's room, Shoto hesitates, but Fuyumi grabs his arm and pulls him in before he can escape. The visit actually turns out to be quite pleasant. Their mother, whose name is Todoroki Rei, is quiet and kind. She sheds a few tears when she first sees Shoto. Izuku feels distinctly uncomfortable, but Natsuo slings an arm over his shoulder and quietly confides that Shoto hasn't seen his mother in years. Eventually, the tears subside, and Izuku takes his chance to offer the flowers he'd picked. The Todoroki's mother thanks him kindly and arranges them in a vase near her bed. Then Fuyumi explains to her mother that Izuku was Shoto's friend, and that when she had invited Izuku, Shoto had volunteered to go along with him. Their mother seems to realize that there is more to the story, but laughs. She has a quiet laugh, a bit sad, but still lovely. There is not enough seat for all of them, so the siblings sit on the bed while their mother takes one chair and Izuku takes the other. Izuku is content to sit there and listen, while the Todorokis tell each other about their lives. His quirk settles down contentedly while they talk, and Izuku is glad that he has been able to do at least this much. Finally, the day that Slingshot and Leader decides on for the haze arrives. When he is getting ready, he brings the jumpsuits, the flashlight, and the smoke-making firework. Izuku considers the last item for a long time, then shrugs and shoves everything into his bag. He meets them at their apartment, and they pack away everything that they'll need. Each of them put on one of the jumpsuits Izuku had brought. They fit perfectly. Slingshot and Leader packs a few things that Izuku's quirk doesn't push for, but he decides not to bring it up, since they didn't trust Izuku's quirk to the same degree that he did. They take the bus to the museum, then enters a nearby apartment building. They walk in like nothing is abnormal and climb the stairs. There is roof access, and they sit on the roof for around an hour, waiting for the right time. Leader is uncharacteristically silent and tense, and Slingshot keeps asking Izuku about his gear and insists on them talking through the plan to make sure they know what to do. Just before it's time to leave, Izuku pulls out his crime phone. He follows his quirk instructions and pulls up the contact information of Papercup from the group chat. Izuku pauses for a second, not sure what to write, then shrugs and starts typing. Sparky. Hey, sorry to ask this, but could you help us out? I've got Leader and Slingshot here. Could you give us a ride? No rush. He adds an address in the next message, then packs away his phone. Then the fun begins. It's mostly dark by the time that their plan kicks in. They climb carefully across a short gap to the roof of the museum. Eventually, they find a small trapdoor access point with a keypad. Izuku puts on his gloves and follows the pull of his quirk to type in a 6-digit password. The lock clicks open. They climb down the ladder and find themselves in a large storage room of some kind. It's crowded with boxes and storage racks. There is a few cluttered desks, but no signs of people. It's also completely dark. The three of them pull out the flashlights and look around. Izuku's quirk pulls at him. He glances at Leader and Slingshot, who are pulling out those paper floor plans they had brought and talking in whispers. Izuku steps toward one of the huge racks, filling the dark room. It's filled with dusty boxes labeled with long strings of letters and numbers, which probably meant something to the archivist who had stored all these things here. His quirk pushes him to dig through the boxes for one which didn't look any different from the other. Inside it is some kind of older style memory stick. His quirk pulls at his gut with an unusual amount of force, and he grabs it and packs it into one of the pockets of his bag. He doesn't know why his quirk wants it, but he doesn't know why his quirk does most of what it does. He shines his light across the documents that had been with the memory stick and finds the item description. It says that it's an early Quirk era relic. Apparently it was thought to contain information about some villain of those years, but that the encryption has never been cracked, and it eventually had been sent to the museum since it hadn't been used in any investigation. Interesting? Maybe. Izuku doesn't know why his quirk could want him to have information about this. Then, his quirk pulls him away from the rack and back to Leader and Slingshot. Leader is walking to the main door of the storage room, and Izuku grabs his arm to steal him. His quirk prompts him to pull Leader away from the door and into a nook between a number of storage boxes. Slingshot glances around and follows them. Then, the door to the storage room opens. Izuku can feel Leader tense up beside him. But whoever walks in only shines a flashlight around the room for a few moments before closing the door again. Leader lets out an explosive sigh. "Thanks, Sparky," he says quietly. He still looks quite stressed though. Izuku pats his arm and gets up. His quirk pulls at him, and he pauses. He reaches into his bag and pulls out the smoke-making firework. "What?" Slingshot hisses. "Why did you bring that?" Izuku just shrugs at her and sets it up in the widest part of the cramped storage room. "Sparky," she says, grabbing his shoulder. "This isn't part of the plan." Izuku spends a few seconds staring at her, trying to think of what he should say. He knows that this is the right thing to do. "Come on, Seiko," Leader says, pulling her away. "He's just like this, you know. It hasn't hurt us yet." Izuku carefully takes out the timer contraption and connects it to the fuse of the firework. He turns it on and sees that he needs to set a specific time amount. Slingshot says, "You're always like this. You can't just trust everyone." "Come on," Leader says. "Has he let us down yet?" "Yes, okay," Slingshot says. "Let's just finish this." Izuku's quirk tells him, digit by digit, to type in 2332. He pauses, then at the exact moment his quirk tells him, he presses the start button. He stands back up. "Okay, we're good," Izuku says with a nod. Slingshot and Leader share a look. Slingshot makes a confused motion of her hand, and Leader just shrugs helplessly. Izuku just heads to the door, and Slingshot and Leader follow him after a few more seconds of silence. Izuku carefully opens the door and sees the inside of the museum proper. Izuku's been to museum for field trips before, and it looks perfectly normal from what he can remember. They are in a huge hallway lined with various items that Izuku doesn't think are particularly interesting. There is not any glass cases, or anything. Just red ropes a few feet away from the exhibits themselves. Okay, Slingshot says. She takes a careful look around, then steps around the ropes to start piling objects into her bag. She looks back at Izuku and Leader and jerks her head at them. Come on guys, we really don't have all day. Izuku follows her lead and steps over the rope to start shoving things into his bag. Nothing really seems that interesting. There is some odd-looking phones, some figurines that he doesn't recognize, just a bunch of old stuff. Izuku doesn't really know why people thought this stuff needed to be in museum. They are old, but nothing is that interesting. His bag is mostly full when he gets a warning pull from his cord. He pauses from trying to fit a stuffed animal into his bag and glances around. On the other side of the hallway, Slingshot's bag is full, and she's quietly urging Leader to hurry up. Izuku snaps his fingers, and they both glance at him. He steps over the ropes and makes a hurry-up gesture at them. Leader keeps stuffing things into his bag, but Slingshot grabs him by the arm and pulls him to Izuku. Slingshot steps over the red rope, but when Leader tries to follow, he trips over it. The rod which had held the rope clatters to the ground. Then, the rest of the rods around it follow suit, pulled by the red rope. The resulting clanging is almost deafening in the complete silence of the museum. Leader stares at the rods, then back up at Izuku. He makes a belated gesture to try to pick up the rod again. Izuku feels the tug of his cord and takes off running in a seemingly random direction. He hears footsteps behind them. He rounds a corner and comes to an abrupt stop in an alcove of the wall. Slingshot and Leader rush through the doorway behind him, and he grabs their arms to tuck them in with him. A moment later, loud footsteps sound from the direction that they had come, then shouting, and the sounds of some sort of the walkie-talkie system. Izuku pushes back into Leader and Slingshot, and a few seconds later, a security guard comes into view to his right. He jogs through the hall, only a few feet in front of Izuku, then rushes down the hallway they had just vacated. Izuku grabs Slingshot's arm in his right hand and Leader's in his left, then takes off in another direction. He takes them away from the hallway they had come in from. He can hear Slingshot's quiet stream of curses on one side, and Leader's quiet stream of apologies on the other. Izuku keeps leading them through the museum, taking a strange road that he assumes keeps them away from any cameras. There is a few times that he catches sight of security guards, but they don't get quite as close as the first time. Eventually, Izuku leads them to a wider hallway. He can see the entrance across a lobby with a number of columns. There is a bunch of security guys in the front, way too many to sneak past. Okay, Leader says quietly. Guys, I'm so sorry. I'll go out and lead them away. Like hell you are. Slingshot hisses and grabs Leader's sleeve. We'll figure something out, okay? You don't need to take the fall for something else. I'm going. No, Leader says, shaking off Slingshot's hand. I've already got a record, it's fine, it's just another thing. That's not a good reason, you'll just get in more trouble, Slingshot says. You always let yourself take the fall. Most of the time it's not even your own damn fault. I'm literally robbing a museum right now, Leader says, almost petulantly. Well, you wouldn't be if you could get an actual job, Slingshot hisses. I tried, Leader says, waving an arm. I really do, but then I just get in trouble for stuff and I'm back in the shit again. I never asked you to join me in this. But I decided to, Slingshot says. And for once in your life, can you just let someone else take the fall, please? Their voices are getting a little loud. Izuku steps between them, holding the straps of his backpack and kind of wishing They would hash this out some other time. We need to leave soon, Izuku interrupts hesitantly. Look kid, those guards there, Slingshot points. We can't exactly just walk out of. That's the moment the fire alarm goes off. Oh, huh. So that's what the fireworks were for. The lights are flashing and the sound is bouncing off of the concrete floors. It's deafening. Izuku tucks his backpack into place and grabs Slingshot and Leader once again. He pulls them to the side of the hallway for a moment. This is not a drill. There is a fire in the building. Please exit immediately. A loud announcement calls from the ceiling. Then, the loud alarm sound continues. Izuku keeps Slingshot and Leader in place for a moment, then walks toward the front door, pulling Leader and Slingshot along with him. They near the group of security guards at the same time as what looks to be a legitimate maintenance worker. He pulls out his clearance card to show them the security guard. But they only give it a glance before gesturing him out of the door. Izuku nods and rushes out behind him. The security guards see their uniforms and just wave them past. Outside, there's already a cop car, and Izuku can hear sirens in the distance. Izuku pulls Slingshot and Leader along behind him and crosses to the other side of the street. Once there, Slingshot tries to pull them away from the scene, but Izuku pulls back. Just then, a beat-up minivan pulls up beside them. The window rolls down, and Izuku sees the worried-looking face of Peppercup. He looks tired and seems to be dressed in pajamas. Guys, are you okay? What's happening? He asks, glancing at the cops in front of the museum. Izuku pushes Slingshot and Leader into the car, then sits in the passenger seat. We're good, Izuku says, then pulls off his backpack. We just stole a bunch of stuff though, so we should probably leave soon. Peppercup glances at the bag, then at the museum, then grows much paler and starts the car. He pulls out of his spot and into traffic just as the cops are beginning to run across the street towards them. Peppercup is gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, so Izuku leans over and pats him on the arm. Don't worry, I don't get caught, Izuku says placatingly. We'll be fine. Then he glances up at an intersection in front of them. His quirk sends him an impulse. You'll want to turn right at the next intersection though, Izuku asks. Peppercup does so, and a cop passes them going the opposite direction. Izuku gives him a few more directions, then tells him to pull into a parking lot a few minutes from the museum. Izuku leans back into his seat and stretches. His muscles had grown tense. Holy fuck, Slingshot says from the back seat. Izuku realized she and Leader had been silent for a long time. He glances back at them. They are both gripping their seatbelts in white-knuckle grip. Izuku decides he will let the language slide. They seem a little rattled. Peppercup hesitantly raises his hand. What just happened? What follows is a very loud and somewhat exaggerated account of the wall haze from Leader, with occasional input from Slingshot. Peppercup seems both worried and fascinated by the whole story. He also sends Izuku a wide-eyed glances when his part is explained. Eventually, Izuku interrupts the conversation. Could you drop me off back at my house? Izuku asks hesitantly. What? Oh, yeah. Peppercup says, attention turned away from Leader loudly explaining what it was exactly that they had stolen. No problem, kid. The drive is 20 minutes or so. Izuku gives Peppercup directions to his new apartment. During the drive, Izuku slips the memory stick he had grabbed from the storage room into his pocket, then removes his crab phone from the bag. Once they're parked outside Izuku's apartment, He hands over the bag of things he has stolen to Leader. He opens it and takes a cursory look inside. "It will take me a bit, but I'll start selling this off," Leader says. "Don't do it too quickly or all at the same place. They'll connect it to the robbery," Slingshot says almost reflexively. I know, Leader says with a dismissive hand gesture. "It will probably be a couple of months. You good with that, Sparky?" Izuku skulked a little, flat-footed by the attention. He had honestly forgotten about the whole getting paid part of this. "Oh, yeah, that's fine," Izuku says. "Actually, could I give half my share to Peppercup? He helped a lot." Izuku felt a little bad about pulling the guy out of whatever he had been doing. He was pretty sure that nothing bad could come of it, but this was the sort of thing people found stressful. I couldn't take your part," Peppercup says, rubbing at the back of his head. "I didn't do that much." 1/7, Slingshot cuts in. "You get 1/7, each of us get 2/7. Simple enough. We're not just going to not pay you for this, dude." "Oh!" Peppercup looks like he doesn't know what he should be doing, but he seems pleased enough. Thank you?" "Of course!" Leader leans forward and pats Peppercup on the shoulder, which makes the man even more flustered. "As one of my minions, you will be properly compensated for any business." Peppercup seems pleased by this. Izuku says his goodbyes, and Leader promises to be in touch. Izuku hops out of the car and walks into his apartment, sending the minivan a final wave. He walks up the stairs and into his apartment. Once he's back inside, he lays down face down on the bed for a while. His quirk pokes and prods at him to get up, but he ignores it until it becomes too annoying. He scrapes himself off the bed and into his chair. His hands twitch toward the memory stick, and he pulls it out. He turns it in his hand for a few moments. He watches the files in his finger twirl around in the thing. It looks like triumph. He guesses that this is the real reason for this entire venture. He digs around in his closet and pulls out that old cable thing he had picked up before the museum and plugs it into his computer. Then he plugs the memory stick to that. His fingers twitch around his keyboard and he follows their lead. They lead him to the files inside the memory stick. When he tries to open it, he finds that there is a long encryption password needed to open the file. He carefully watches the files, then starts typing. The password is more than 2,000 characters long. Izuku doesn't really know much about encryptions, but he thinks that this is probably the reason that the museum was never able to access the files inside the memory stick. Once the files finally are open, Izuku begins to explore. He doesn't know what he expected, but it wasn't this. As he gets into the files, he grabs a juice from his tiny fridge and curls up on his bed to read. It takes some time for him to understand the story being told. Most of the files are old news articles, some villain attack reports, and a number of simple text files that seem to be someone's notes on other sources. It looks like someone was compiling these stories for some purpose, and it takes Izuku a while to figure out what it was. It's not organized well, and some of the files are corrupted from the years. Izuku thinks that this might be upward of 100 years old, so he is more surprised that everything is in as good a shape as it is. The story that Izuku pieces together goes like this. There was a villain, very early in the development of quirks, so early that the quirk prejudice was still in full effect. He had a powerful quirk. Some said that he could copy other people's quirks. Other people went so far as to say that he could completely take away and give quirks. He was one of the most feared villains in his time, and he caused more damage in those years that he was active than any modern villain Izuku could think of. Eventually, his control waned, and he fell back into obscurity. Or at least, that's what the news article said. The notes left by whoever created this said otherwise. They said that this person, who they called All for One, was still in play. The person referred to their quirk as One for All, which Izuku doesn't know what to make of at first. As he keeps reading, he starts to think that One for All might instead be some type of title. That this person was part of some group of people who had been working against All for One for some time. From what Izuku reads, this villain didn't lose power so much as decide that he no longer needed to be the focus. His power never lessened, but anyone who knew what he was, or what he could do, was taken out of play so that he could do what he wanted, unopposed. By the time Izuku had skimmed through most of the files, doing what he can to organize them by type and timeline, it's getting late. The clock reads 1:42, and his eyes are getting heavy. He transfers the files to his own computer, and at a switch from his quirk, adds his own set of encryption's password to them. That wasn't something he had known his computer could do, but his quirk shows him how. He ejects and takes out the memory card. He drops it into a drawer with the adapter. Then, he turns out the light and settles back into his bed. This is something interesting, and he has a feeling that he will go through the files again, more carefully next time. But why had his quirk done so much to get these files? It wasn't like this villain was still in power. The files were formed over a century ago. The villain was long dead, and likely didn't have any power anymore. Izuku feels the grip of his quirk around his hand. He pulls them from under the covers and stares at them. The vines are thick and tangled around his hands, knotted and snarled around his fingers. He pulls out his arm and sees that they have climbed and are brushing past his shoulders. That's the furthest that Izuku has ever seen them grow. Which means that this is something important, and that Izuku really needs to do something. That this file is important. It means that this villain is still alive. The realization brings the vines to life. They shift anchor in what Izuku knows is acknowledgement, and what Izuku can read as determination and a plan. His quirk wants him to take down this villain, All for One, whoever he is. Once he knows this, his quirk starts to curl into itself. It pulls back, curling until it recedes back into the twin freckles on the back of his hands. His chest radiates satisfaction. Izuku spends a long time laying in bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about this villain, about the person who had been working against him. He thinks about how this was the most information his quirk has ever given him about what a plan will be. He falls asleep thinking about the sheer number of heroes who have died to this villain over the decades.